Welcome to the Best Little Town Podcast, your go-to source for everything happening in the town of Bedford's local government. Whether it's new initiatives or important decisions shaping our town's future, you'll hear it right here. This podcast is dedicated to keeping our residents informed and engaged.
Hello, it is Wednesday, July 23rd, 2025. You have joined the Best Little Town podcast, brought to you by the town of Bedford in cooperation with our partners at Media Squatch. My name is Bart Warner. I'm the town manager of Bedford, and we host this program the day after every council meeting to provide a recap of the topics that are discussed by the leadership of the town, and also to provide some maybe greater background information about those activities and discussions as well. Of course, I'm joining you because we met last night. Council meets every second and fourth Tuesday of every month at 7 p.m. at 215 East Main Street, the municipal building. Council chambers are located upstairs. Please join us for these meetings. If people have questions about the official actions of the town, those all take place at the council meetings. And occasionally we get comments from people that they don't know what's going on. Well, it's kind of hard for us to respond to that because we are available twice a month, every month. On the rare occasion we do cancel meetings, we'll let you know, but we don't get a lot of attendance and we don't get a lot of views. So, in fact, if you're listening to this podcast, thank you very much because that helps us quite a bit in sharing the information. Diving right into last night's meeting, I'm going to just kind of go through the agenda, which I do typically on this show and in these podcasts. We began with the approval of minutes from previous meetings. That was unanimously dispensed with by town council. Let me back up. The first thing we had to deal with was an administrative issue related to the absence of Vice Mayor Daryl Updike. Daryl advised that he was out of town due to a family obligation in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, but he did call in and attended virtually by Zoom or some other space-age technology. In order to do that, council has to grant permission. So before the meeting even began, a majority of council members voted to allow Vice Mayor Updike to attend virtually. After the approval of the minutes, there's the report of town manager. Actually, I have been away from the office for several days and did not have any report last night, but advised that I was there to answer questions. We did have one appearance before council, and that was Pastor Ross Gilfillan, who is the pastor of Longwood Avenue Baptist Church. He appeared to offer prayer for council, and the format of his prayer was kind of neat. It was an acrostic covering the word vision. He also noted that he had his 10-year-old daughter with him at the meeting and just wanted her to be there to witness the practice of local government democracy in action. The next item of the agenda was council comments, beginning with Councilman Dwight Evans. He thanked all the people who were personally present within the room at the meeting and also thanked the pastor for his prayer. Councilman David Foster echoed the comments of Mr. Evans and thanking the attendees and thanking Pastor Ross. Dave Foster also mentioned the activity of a group known as Mission Serve that was active here in town a couple of weeks ago. That is a Christian organization that brings teenagers from really all over the country to work on projects, typically housing improvements for needy families and communities. Here in Bedford, there were 7 houses which were rehabbed, and when I say rehabbed, a couple of those had complete roof replacements. So if you're interested in seeing more about that organization, you can go online at missionserve.org. It is a very interesting group. I will say I and my family have been involved with them personally on projects in other communities as well. Vice Mayor Updike thanked the rest of the council members for allowing him to attend virtually. He also thanked the attendees and thanked Reverend Gilfillan for the prayer. Daryl also noted that July 4th, 2026 is a landmark date in the history of our country. It'll be the 250th observation of our independence. American Legion Post 54 is looking to really expand upon the usual observations of the 4th of July, and they intend to kick things off on May 16th with a kickoff event, including a parade. He mentioned that they will be contacting the town to go through the necessary process for approval for that event. And they targeted May as a kickoff event in an effort to hopefully include the local high school bands because they'll still be in school then. Councilman Stacey Haley likewise thanked everyone who was present in the building. He brought up a recurring issue that we've had regarding skateboarders and scooters on sidewalks in the business area. Folks may or may not be aware, but it is actually illegal to operate a bicycle, a skateboard, or particularly these motorized scooters in our business areas. That's a very practical matter. It's frankly a very dangerous situation. If you're familiar with our Centertown area, you know that our sidewalks and our buildings are pretty much right up against each other. And frankly, if you're coming out of a building, you don't really know what's on the sidewalk till you get out there. So I know people probably don't appreciate maybe the gravity of that, and they see it as something that might be relatively harmless involving children's activities. But actually what we're seeing is more and more bicyclists and motorized scooter users who are children and adults on the sidewalks. We're guessing they are not aware of the code that prohibits that and probably not aware of the unsafe situation that's being created. But Councilman Haley brought that up and asked that our police department give it attention. So in case you are one of those people who operates that form of transportation, we may be interacting with you more directly. Again, it is a safety issue. It may not be apparent, but we will engage with our police department to make sure that our pedestrians and our citizens are safe. Councilman Todd Foreman also thanked everyone who was in attendance, and he noted that we lost a longtime employee last week who passed away. I did not get the gentleman's name, unfortunately. I meant to do that prior to this broadcast, but I didn't. I'll try to pick that up next week or the next broadcast. Councilman Jay Ippolito, again, thanked everyone who was present. He also spoke to the issue of scooters on the sidewalks. Of course, Mr. Ippolito operates a restaurant on East Main Street and shared his personal views on that and the fact that it is a safety issue, particularly from his perspective from some of our older residents. Councilman Ippolito also noted that he has heard some concerns from businesses about our change in commercial trash service, particularly the fact that the town is officially ending commercial solid waste collection effective October 1st. This is a budget issue and has been something that's been discussed several times by council, and I'm actually going to kind of speak to that because there's still a lot of questions. And again, this is an issue where we're hearing that people didn't know about it. So beginning back on February 22nd, there was a budget work session. At that point, staff and council talked about a number of things. Principal on our list of things was addressing the loss of $750,000 in revenue related to reversion. That goes away in 2028. For the past 12 to 13 years, we have been using that to balance the budget as part of our operations. And so we recognize that it would be better to get ahead of that. So we developed a plan beginning this current fiscal year, which we just started July 1st, to account for that money going away right now so we don't essentially go off the cliff in 2028. Part of that was expansion of the BPOL license. Some of that was other efficiencies, including some reductions in service, which directly relates to commercial solid waste. Another aspect, just for your information, is that the town will be debt-free as of next year. So all these things combine to kind of help us absorb a future loss of things without having it happen in an abrupt manner. The idea is we account for this $750,000 in the current fiscal year. Then ideally in the remaining 2 years of the payment, we can take that money, put it in the bank, hopefully draw some interest on it, and use it to fund some activities that are important to the community. Anyway, that's the background. And back on February 22nd, we first mentioned that getting out of the commercial solid waste collection business would probably save us an estimated $200,000 a year. And frankly, it's a service whose costs are going up. We explained that in some detail at that work session. Then on March 25th at the council meeting, council actually passed a motion affirming its intent to withdraw from commercial solid waste as of July 1st, 2025. That vote was unanimous, and it also is important to note that it took place as a formal item of business at the council meeting. Again, if you have questions about how things are done, when they're done, why they're done, that all takes place in open meetings, public meetings of the town council. Again, that particular meeting was the fourth Tuesday of March. That was March 25th. Back on March 25th, all 7 members of council unanimously indicated that we were withdrawing from commercial solid waste service. And that is something that we've spoken to in this podcast previously as well. Following up on April 8th, council had inquired of staff as to how we might maybe massage that withdrawal from the service and if it would be possible to simply contract out the collection part. We reported at that time that contracting out really did not address the issue. Again, the primary cost associated with solid waste is more disposal than collection, although collection is a challenge for us as well, because whereas commercial companies focus entirely on this activity, our solid waste, but commercial solid waste is collected by our public works employees in addition to every other task that they perform. So the collection part of it is a challenge for us, particularly as we're a growing community. But the other side of that is disposal. And for commercial solid waste, we have to pay to collect and transport that to a landfill and then pay tipping fees. We've had arrangements in place that have offset those costs, but those are expiring, and we are aware that those fees are going up. We also have some capital costs that are going up related to that, which is the reason behind the decision to withdraw the service. On April 22nd, the budget was presented, which included information from staff regarding this service, regarding specifically that it would be going away July 1st. I will say on May 6th, 2025, I drafted a 14-page memo to council outlining the analysis and data behind this decision and also the plan to address the $750,000 in revenue. If anyone is interested in receiving that document, please email me at bwarner@bedfordva.gov, and I will be more than happy to provide you with that. It really kind of spells out all of the rationale and the data behind this decision to get out of the commercial solid waste collection business. On May 27th, the budget was adopted. Again, let me go back. That memo on May 6th noted, again, that the change in commercial solid waste collection services would take effect with the budget. On May 27th, the budget was adopted, including the proposed change in service. That vote was unanimous. Since that time, we noted, again, people need to understand that this change in service we recognize is a reduction. We regret that. Also, the change affects our operations as well. So we have to kind of reallocate our resources and make sure that we can absorb this into our operations as well. We also noted that it's a major inconvenience for these customers who have been relying on this service and will have to identify another option. So since that time, we've been working on a letter to the 190 registered commercial accounts that we have, explaining that the service goes away October 1st and also providing some information about alternatives. If you did not receive one of those letters and you are a commercial customer, that means that you are not appropriately registered as a commercial customer. And frankly, that's another operational issue that is the rationale behind us getting out of that service and turning it over to the private sector. Anecdotally, I will say we're aware of at least one provider in town who apparently is able to provide that service at a lower cost than what the town was able to provide. Anyway, this was a large aside to the council agenda, kind of responding to Councilman Ippolito's concerns. we do want to do our best to share that information. And of course, it's fine to engage with council members, but also please feel free to contact us directly during business hours at 540-587-6001, and we'll do our best to share the information. And again, you can email me at bwarner@bedfordva.gov, and in particular, I can give you that 14-page memo dealing with this particular issue. Moving on with council comments, Mayor C.G. Stanley concluded by also thanking everyone who was present, as well as Pastor Gilfillan, who offered prayer. C.G. noted that we always welcome prayers and positive energy. He noted that he participated in a ribbon-cutting event for the Helm Street Water Tank Improvement Project that was undertaken by the Bedford Regional Water Authority. That project was done by BRWA and was funded through the use of the town's ARPA money. Those of us who remember back the days of COVID, there was a tranche of money provided for capital projects by the federal government, and the town basically dedicated that towards water and sewer improvements with the eye towards correcting some capacity issues that were limiting our ability to develop and expand. Of course, Burwa is a great operational partner on a daily basis anyway. We really appreciate them and don't take them for granted. The Helm Street project is kind of the latest example of them getting ahead of things which benefit the water system and reliability in general, but also provide some long-term benefits. CG noted that, again, this was a cooperative effort between the town and the Bedford Regional Water Authority, and of course noted our great appreciation for their partnership. Moving on into the rest of the agenda, we did have a public hearing last night related to a request for tax exemption submitted by Bedrock Community Church for property they own on Odie Street. The request was made pursuant to Virginia State Code, which authorizes the town to designate tax-exempt status to property owned by nonprofit organizations that meet certain criteria, including religious, charitable, patriotic, historical, benevolent, cultural, or public park and playground purposes. The total assessed value of the property in question is $318,100, and the annual real estate taxes on that are $890.68 collected by the town. Did require a public hearing, and any citizen who was in favor of or opposed to the request had an opportunity to speak at that time. There were no speakers, and so consequently the public hearing was closed. On the consent agenda was a request to close streets submitted by the Bedford Police Department. Bedford Police Department is going to be holding its National Night Out event on August 5th from 5 p.m. until 8 p.m., basically centered around the farmers market on Washington Street. In conjunction with that event, the street itself, Washington, would be closed for festivities between the intersection of Washington and Center Street and the intersection of Washington and South Bridge Street. On a motion by Councilman Stacy Haley, seconded by Councilman Todd Foreman, Town Council unanimously approved the request to close the streets. And again, we'd like to make everyone aware of the National Night Out event sponsored by the Bedford Police Department. It's another opportunity for civic engagement between our officers and the community, and something that is fun and enjoyable for the community. The first item of new business dealt with the request from Bedrock Community Church for tax exemption. There is a pretty exhaustive list of regulations related to the town's ability to exempt nonprofit properties from real estate tax. That is covered in Virginia Code Section 58.1-3651 if you're interested. I had begun to recap all those details, but in the course of their actions, council determined that they already had the information and did not require me to read it at the meeting. But if you obtain a copy of our agenda, particularly if you see the minutes, once they're approved, you'll see all that information. Ultimately, Councilman David Foster made a motion to approve Bedrock Community Church's request for real estate tax exemption. That motion was seconded by Dwight Evans. Councilman Stacy Haley noted the fact that there are a few members of Bedrock Community Church who serve on council, but he had consulted with the town attorney's office and indicated that there is no obvious conflict of interest. It's one of those things where there has to be a personal financial benefit for that to be in play, and that is not the case in this particular instance. Councilman Haley also noted that there are 58 tax-exempt properties within the town, according to his estimation, and expressed his concern about the loss of revenue, particularly when the town is having to raise other revenues and reduce services in other places. There were some questions about the proposed use of the property, and Councilman Foster and Councilman Evans were able to speak to those. Mayor Stanley commented that he was somewhat surprised that the property had not been exempt from town taxes before now. It's our understanding that Bedford County has already acted upon that, and they have not been paying the corresponding county taxes to this date. Mayor Stanley also noted that he was familiar with a program that is proposed for this property, or maybe even ongoing, to engage teenagers, and he thought it was a fairly impressive program, and noted that that includes not only Bedrock, but also Word of Life and Bedford Baptist Church. Ultimately, the motion to approve tax-exempt status for this particular property owned by Bedrock Community Church was approved by a unanimous vote of council. The next item of new business was a budget amendment to accept funding for police expenditures. Every year, the town receives money from the state, basically through a bill in the House of Delegates identified as House Bill 599. That's an annual thing that the state does provide some support to all law enforcement agencies. We had budgeted an estimate of $314,855 as the state's contribution, but we found out that actually there's a little bit more money coming our way, so we had to adopt a budget amendment to accept that. The additional amount was $9,788. On a motion by Councilman Todd Foreman, seconded by Councilman Stacey Haley, the vote was unanimous to amend the budget to accept these funds. The next and final item of new business last night was a resolution approving an agreement with the Bedford County Commonwealth's attorney. This is kind of down in the weeds, but may be of interest to people who like to follow government. In order for the Commonwealth's attorney to enforce Bedford Town ordinances and specific local ordinances to the town, there has to be an agreement in place. That agreement is with the specific Commonwealth's attorney, not the office itself, and that's because no elected official can take any action which binds a future elected official. And so we had a previous agreement specifically with Mr. Randy Krantz, who served in that office, which expired when he went to the bench as a judge. And we basically had to create an updated agreement with our relatively new Commonwealth's attorney, Mr. Wes Nance, and that's what we did in conjunction with the town attorney's office. The new agreement was vetted by Mike Lockaby, who is our town attorney. The funds have been budgeted. And last night, on a motion by Dave Foster, seconded by Todd Foreman, the council unanimously adopted a resolution authorizing Mayor C.G. Stanley to enter into a prosecution services agreement with County Commonwealth's attorney Wes Nance. And that concluded the business of council last night. Again, I appreciate your attention to this podcast and appreciate your attention to the activities of town in general. We want to make sure that people know what's going on. We want to make sure that questions are answered. Oftentimes, though, we don't hear those questions unless they're brought to us directly. So again, I'll issue a request for you to attend our public meetings. The council meets second and fourth Tuesdays at 7 o'clock of every month. On rare occasions, we will cancel those meetings, but we have to post notice ahead of time for those. Also, you can view those on live stream through our partners at Media Squatch, and I believe that's through YouTube. Woody's giving me the thumbs up. So if you go to youtube.com, while we're meeting, you can watch it live. Pretty shortly thereafter, we get the recordings up on that site. So youtube.com, search for Town of Bedford, Virginia. Once the minutes for each meeting are approved, and that's usually the subsequent meeting, those are posted to our website at www.bedfordva.gov. If you click on the government tab there, it'll take you right to agendas and minutes, and you can find all the information there. Also, again, this podcast is designed to provide for a recap. So there are a lot of exciting, interesting, and challenging things happening in what we bill as the world's best little town. So we want people to be involved. We need people to be informed, and we certainly welcome your input and comments as we go forward. We just ask that you keep in mind that, when we ask for input, if you've got an idea or a solution, that's fantastic. But there are situations, sometimes complications of code, that may not allow us to give you the response that you want to receive. So we do our best to make people happy, but sometimes we have to tell people things they don't want to hear. And unfortunately, from a staff perspective, that happens more often than not. That said, we appreciate your patience. We appreciate your questions. We appreciate the challenges that are before us. We talked in the staff meeting the other day that our community is currently in a transitional phase, but there's no place in the world like Bedford, Virginia. Certainly in terms of our physical location, the beauty of this area is unmatched. Our proximity to great benefits. There's no place else you can do everything that you can do in Bedford, and we recognize that in this day and age, everybody has a choice of where they can live. Personally, I can tell you there's nowhere else I'd rather be, and I appreciate the fact that so many of you all feel the same way. But also, we don't take that for granted. So we intend to be vigilant and diligent in our efforts to preserve our status as the world's best little town. And until we meet again, I thank you again for your attention and hope you're enjoying a very pleasant summer.